brought up, CE3, and even like one of the things that we do as Civic Mentors is, and if you saw, on the website, we talk about what we call kind of the 15-minute buyer window, and then we've been using another term as the roller coaster optimization framework. The idea there really is the roller coaster is more about thinking about the touch points with the consumer and the emotions involved in that. And something like, say, from my background in video games, I always said, I got so much pushback from any company I've ever helped about having any kind of friction, because they don't want to lose the player. They want to get the player in, playing the game, addicted to the game. Then when you say, okay, but what about SMS? What about Google Authenticator? What about email verification? Any of these kind of things were always so much pushback. But if you think about, kind of where the emotion comes into it, and I just always say, guys, think about this. Whenever they want something from you, you can ask something for them.
From my experience that you mentioned earlier, this thing that I did with what was called Passmark Security, or Bank of America called it SiteKey, that was a huge decision that had to be made to force every online banking customer at B of A to go through an enrollment step, pick a picture, and then every time they logged in to see that picture. The politics within B of A or any other company, any other bank we signed to opt into that. Now, eventually, the regulations forced the banks to do stronger authentication for online banking, but B of A was doing it before those regulations, came into being. And it was a huge decision. But the paradigm was very different than the shopping space, because in online banking, consumer confidence was so critical. The banks knew that the economics for online banking, it was all about getting more and more and more and more people to use online banking rather than coming into the branches, which is much more expensive, or sending a paper check or whatever it happened to be. And so they had, the banks had a vested interest in making sure that they reinforced consumer confidence. And that was what led to the decision, because phishing, many of us probably forget already, but there was a time when people really started to doubt whether or not they would continue to do things like online banking because how bad phishing, became. Online shopping, though, is a completely different, paradigm. And so to your point, especially about companies like a game company, where the margins are so high, have a significant portion of your transactions end up being fraudulent because the margin on the good transactions is so high. You're willing to take that risk. Of course, the card brands, only allow it up to a certain point. Matter of fact, one company Vendicia has changed hands now, and the founder's long gone. But his argument was, you actually wanted to structure your rules in such a way that you were right up to the edge of the 1%, chargeback rule before you flipped over, into the penalty box, because that made a lot more sense than tightening, things down and trying to keep your fraud rate like below half a percent. They put strategies in place with customers to just be right up at the edge whenever they possibly could, for that exact reason. But that again, big difference between a game company and someone selling consumer electronics, where the gross margin is at best 20%. Like, you can't afford, hardly any chargebacks, with stuff like that. So that's what makes the industry so interesting, because there are no 100% applied rules depending on, your particular situation, what you're selling, where you're selling it, how you're selling it, what the margins are, et cetera. So it's extremely dynamic.